In anticipation of tonight's match between Brentford and Manchester United, we're using data from fbref.com to tell you about the form of each of these clubs as they prepare for this evening's match. First of all, starting with Brentford, answering the question what form they're in, the short answer is not quite as bad as you might think. So the first thing we're looking at here is goals for compared to goals against for Brentford, incorporating their performance from the Championship going into the Premier League. I think Brentford are generally considered to have had a positive impact on the Premier League, have been a team that is difficult to play against, hard to score against. And we can see that as the orange line representing goals against has continued, at least initially, at the same sort of point, i.e. not conceding very many goals. They are conceding more chances than that would suggest, which we'll look at in the next chart. But what you can see from a Brentford point of view is a worrying crossover between goals for and goals against. So they are now conceding, on average, more goals than they are scoring, which is obviously a bad place to be. But in contrast, the context, though, in contrast to Manchester United's recent run of fixtures, the last 6 games under Ranić have been relatively weak opposition, whereas Brentford have played Brighton, Manchester City, and Liverpool being their most recent match. So although their form looks like it has deteriorated versus Manchester United, their opponents tonight, they have had a much more difficult recent run of fixtures. Having looked at goals scored versus goals conceded in the previous data, we're now looking at what I would consider to be a more reliable indicator of underlying form. So this is expected goals versus expected goals against or conceded. This is a measure of the number and the quality of chances, in this case that Brentford create, versus expected goals against, which is the reverse of that, the number and quality of the chances conceded against their opposition. So the overall pattern of data is quite similar. Strong start, but struggling a bit more recently, again bearing in mind their difficult fixtures over the last 5 or 6 matches. But what is very clear is that the gap between expected goals and expected goals conceded is much narrower than the actual goals that they scored and the actual goals that they conceded. And if you look back on those matches, especially the Arsenal match, Arsenal created a fair number of chances. So their underlying form probably wasn't completely reflected in their results. They were probably, hesitate to say it, a little bit lucky, and their more recent run of fixtures, say over the last 10 games versus the first 10 games, are probably a better reflection of the quality of the team. So now we're answering the question, what kind of form are Manchester United in? And the quick answer to that is probably a bit worse than you might be led to believe. Their recent run of fixtures, last 6 games under Ranić, has been relatively kind compared to the last 6 games that Brentford have played. Looking here at goals for and goals against, as Ranić has pointed out clearly in his press conferences with his notes available to him to check the numbers, he has arrested the situation where United were conceding lots of goals, as they were in the latter stages, represented by the orange line here under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. What he hasn't managed to crack the code of is how to get them competing at the other end of the pitch effectively and creating chances and scoring goals. And now finally looking at expected goals and expected goals against for Manchester United. The pattern of the data here is similar to their actual goals for and against. The key point here is that United are conceding more chances and good quality chances versus those that they are creating. If you think about their last 6 matches and you look at the expected goals conceded, they've been pretty lucky. I think. And so Burnley was probably the only example of a team that they outplayed. Again, they haven't faced any hugely difficult opposition yet. I thought they were very lucky to come away with a 2-2 draw at Villa Park. They were lucky to lose only by 1 goal to Wolves. So it is definitely worrying times for Ranić and co. takes a long time to change the tactics and mentality and whatever it is he's working on with his coaches. But they do not come into this match in good underlying form. They are conceding fewer chances than under Solskjaer, but they've played quite weak opposition, relatively speaking, and they are not clicking up front. So that should all set up a really interesting contest tonight. Looking forward to watching it. If you like this video, please express that by hitting the like button. Please subscribe to the channel. And while you're there, why not leave me a comment and I'll get back to you, and check out some of my other videos. We will see you next time.